This drama starts with Do-hee thinking, "My life is surrounded by fog. I can't tell who appears as a friend and who acts as an enemy. I sense footsteps around me. Could they be an angel's steps or a demon's? Is someone coming to save me or to destroy me?" Long ago, people said the word demon came from the Greek daimai, which meant to share the same destiny. They believed that, in their origins, demons lived among humans and protected them as guardians. 200 years ago in Joseon, a devout man prayed fervently, asking God to shield his people from evil spirits. Suddenly, there were shouts, "There's blood! It's the demon!" Amid the terror, a mysterious being came across a starving farmer. Seeing a bowl of fish, the hungry man agreed to a dangerous bargain. He signed with his own blood, and the stranger promised him plenty of food for 10 years. Yet the stranger warned that nothing came free, referring to his home as hell. Desperate, the farmer agreed without thinking about the price he would pay once that time was up. In the present, Do-hee works at Mirae Foods. She receives an important award, but soon discovers an article accusing her company of adding too much sugar to its juices. She knows someone inside is trying to sabotage her. While trying to handle this crisis, her secretary mentions the blind date that President Ju Cheon-suk, founder of the Mirae Group, has arranged for her. Ju adopted Do-hee as a child, but Do-hee still feels lonely and out of place in that family. Holding the phone, Do-hee speaks to Ju, explaining the serious problem at work. Ju responds with a hint of sarcasm, asking if she plans to cancel the date. Do-hee suggests postponing it, but Ju insists she hates blind dates as much as medical checkups, so it's best to handle both. With a sigh, Do-hee accepts the meeting. That evening, she arrives at a fancy restaurant and finds it entirely booked for someone named Jeong Gu-won. When she sees him, she realizes he's there under Ju's orders, but his attitude is distant and arrogant. Do-hee tells him she's not interested in men and considers herself married to her job. Jeong replies that he doesn't care whom she marries and that if she wants to tell him anything, she should just hand over her bank details. Feeling offended, Do-hee asks if they have met before. Jeong says he's only following President Ju's instructions. Embarrassed and annoyed, Do-hee leaves. Moments later, some thugs ambush Jeong behind the restaurant. He calls them trash and defeats them effortlessly. When Do-hee returns, she sees him eating a cake. She thought that cake was meant to celebrate her birthday. Upset, she asks if someone told him it was hers. Jeong coldly questions why she cares about a birthday party. Furious, Do-hee calls him unbearable and walks away for good. Later, Do-hee looks into her stepsister, No Soo-an, whom she suspects of spreading the rumor about excess sugar in the juices. Suddenly, she gets a call from Cha Tae-jun in Mirae's finance department. He claims to have crucial information that could make her the head of the group. Do-hee feels she can't trust anyone, fearing a setup. She thinks of President Ju and the family that always sees her as an outsider. She feels caught in a web of intrigue. That same night on Sakcho Beach, a hooded man threatens Do-hee with a knife, saying she will die because of Ju Cheon-suk. She cries out for help, and Jeong appears from the shadows. She begs him to protect her, but he insists nothing comes without a price. Desperate, Do-hee agrees to any condition if he saves her. Jeong fights the attacker with inhuman agility, and both of them end up teetering at the edge of a cliff. Jeong grabs Do-hee's hand before she can fall, while the assailant vanishes into the darkness. Panting, Do-hee admits she thought she was finished. Jeong mentions his name means salvation, and seems surprised she's involved in such danger. A few days later, Do-hee notices a strange mark on her wrist that matches one on Jeong's arm. She asks if he knows why they share that symbol, and he says he has no clue. Meanwhile, Ju Cheon-suk arranges more dates to push Do-hee toward a beneficial marriage. Other relatives in Mirae Group conspire to gain control of the presidency. Jeong tells his assistant he grants humans impossible wishes in exchange for a steep contract. Jin Gae-young, a well-known dancer, seems fixated on him, having learned about his supernatural secret. Do-hee remembers her parents who died years ago. They were kind and hardworking, and she feels their absence like a void, even though Ju took her in. She also feels grateful Jeong saved her, but she worries about what he might demand in return. He insists demon contracts come with a high cost, and she remains unsure whether he is an ally or a new threat. Their cautious stares reveal that they are now linked by those mysterious markings. Do-hee was thinking, when I can't trust anyone, will I dare to trust a demon? Do-hee wakes up in a hospital bed, sweating and confused. Her secretary Shin stands nearby, relieved that she is finally conscious. She remembers a nightmare, but cannot fully recall what happened. Jeong Gu-won appears and says he called Shin for help. Do-hee asks if the attacker was caught, and Jeong replies that the police are working on it. She notices she feels sore, but not badly injured. Jeong, looking calm, says he himself is not feeling so well. Suddenly, Do-hee spots a strange tattoo-like mark on her wrist. wrist. She tries to rub it off, thinking it is a sticker or a fake tattoo. Jeong calls it his tattoo and warns her not to remove it. He claims it belongs to him, although it has mysteriously transferred onto her skin. Do-hee, annoyed, tells him it is her arm, and she can do what she wants. She attempts to yank her wrist free, but for a moment she cannot move his arm at all. Once she finally does, they argue over who saved whom on the night of the attack. Jeong insists she stole something from him. She retorts that she was the one who kept him from drowning. A doctor comes in to check on Do-hee. He says her vital signs look good, and Shin fusses over her, telling her to rest. Detective Park soon arrives to take a statement about the hit and run and the armed attack. He jokes that because they met on a blind date and then survived a dangerous night, maybe they should get married. Both Do-hee and Jeong protest loudly that they want no such thing. After leaving the hospital, Jeong returns to the Sunwol Foundation. He confides to his assistant, Park, that something is terribly wrong. He has lost his demon powers because his tattoo ended up on Do-hee's wrist. Normally, he uses that mark to channel his abilities. Now, he worries about combustion, explaining that demons who fail to maintain their contracts or powers might spontaneously burn. Park is alarmed and asks if Jeong wants to form a new contract quickly. Jeong says he first must handle another contract that is expiring today, so he rushes off without his usual supernatural strength. Meanwhile, Do-hee tries to manage the crisis at Alimentacion Mirae. An article accusing the company's juices of having too much sugar has caused the stock to drop. She also suspects her half-sister, No Su-an, played a role in spreading the rumor. The tension inside the Mirae Group grows. President Ju Cheon-suk recovers from a recent hospital visit, ignoring her knee pain and focusing on protecting Do-hee's position. Ju instructs Do-hee to track down who started the rumor and force them to fix it. Jeong attempts to collect a debt from a human who made a deal with him 10 years ago, but without his powers, he struggles. A group of men attack him all at once instead of one by one, as he expected. He tries to fight them the way he used to, confident and fearless, but quickly realizes he cannot summon any demonic force. He manages to escape serious injury by dodging and distracting them, but it is clumsy compared to his usual style. Park does more research on Do-hee. She was adopted by Ju Cheon-suk after her parents died in a car accident on Do-hee's 11th birthday. She studied hard, graduated early, and built a dessert company that eventually merged into Alimentacion Mirae. People sometimes call her the devil in Hermes because of her tough attitude, but Park notes she seems genuinely hardworking. Later, Jeong calls Do-hee, pretending he is feeling ill from the accident so she will meet him at a mall. She arrives, telling him she only came to pay him back for the previous dinner. He claims his new symptoms, lethargy and feeling like a different person, must be her fault because that tattoo mark is linked to his well-being. Do-hee scoffs, suggesting he see a doctor or psychiatrist. He insists she is the only one who can fix his problem. Jeong drags Do-hee to a fountain area in the mall. She thinks he might try to kiss her, but instead, he forces her underwater. They both nearly choke, emerging in a furious state. He says he needed to check if returning to water might somehow pull back his powers. She yells that she has almost died too many times because of him and demands to know why her life is suddenly in chaos. Jeong confesses he wanted to see if the mark would transfer back, but it did not. Angry, Do-hee storms off, claiming she owes him nothing. Cha Tae-jun from the Mirae finance team was going to give Do-hee crucial information about becoming president of the group. However, news breaks that Cha Tae-jun has been found dead in suspicious circumstances. Reports suggest he may have hanged himself, but the truth is unclear. Alone, Do-hee stands in her office, reading about the tragedy. She wonders if everything around her is collapsing. She recalls her close calls with death, the unknown enemy who attacked her, and Jeong's strange demands. Yet she also remembers how Jeong saved her life more than once. Feeling torn, she looks at the mark on her wrist. Do-hee was thinking, Jeong Gu-won seems more suspicious than anyone. Still, is he my salvation? Do-hee sees a news story. Cha Tae-jun, the finance chief of Mirae, was found hanged in a public restroom. She immediately thinks of his call and wonders if there is a conspiracy. Later, she encounters Jeong Gu-won, who says she possesses something very valuable to him, the strange tattoo on her wrist that gives him his demonic power. When an attacker throws acid at Do-hee, Gu-won arrives just in time to save her. Shocked, she realizes the danger is real. Confused and scared, She asks what he really is. He replies that he is a demon. Humans call him the devil. Detective Park interviews Do-hee at the scene, confirming the liquid on the ground was sulfuric acid. Park suspects Do-hee herself is the primary target, but she does not know who might hate her so much. Gu-won complains that if anything happens to her, he will lose the tattoo that fuels his powers. He demands she be more responsible, but Do-hee refuses to be treated like an object. Meanwhile, in a shady gambling den, a group of rough-looking people are being questioned by security. Gu-won watches them, calling them insignificant humans who take foolish risks. He waits impatiently for Do-hee and seems frustrated by how many humans have gone crazy these days. President Ju's funeral day arrives. Most family members gather, but no one truly mourns. Do-hee feels she is in danger yet again, sensing that someone may have murdered President Ju. She tries to keep calm, but her mind races with theories about Cha Tae-jun's death and a secret audit he had mentioned. Gu-won initially refuses to act as Do-hee's bodyguard, saying demons do not protect humans. Do-hee insists that, unless he guards her, he might lose the tattoo if she gets killed. Eventually, he half agrees. Despite his arrogance, Gu-won starts accompanying her, warning the attacker could strike again. Do-hee tries to puzzle out how to survive, without relying too much on his dark powers. We see Gu-won continuing his deals with desperate humans. A mother, whose child is terminally ill, agrees to give up her own life after 10 years if her daughter can recover. Gu-won grants the wish on the spot, using powers that worsen his growing internal combustion. Without his tattoo fully under his control, each time he performs a miracle, he risks burning up. He shrugs it off, saying that is just the life of a demon. Do-hee is appalled by how he profits from others' suffering. He defends himself, saying he saves people, but at a heavy price. She calls him heartless, but he accuses humans of being equally selfish when they are desperate. At Mirae's headquarters, Do-hee tries to manage the crisis over the juice scandal, while the rest of the family attends Ju Cheon-suk's funeral in formal black clothing. In private, Do-hee sits among the greenhouse plants that President Ju loved, recalling how Ju was always alone in the end. She regrets that Ju died without a proper goodbye. Gu-won appears and offers unexpected comfort, telling her that wearing a bright color at a funeral means Ju can recognize her, while everyone else hides in black. News spreads that President Ju may have died from an allergic reaction to medication, not a simple heart attack. Detective Park suspects foul play because Ju's prescription was tampered with. Do-hee becomes certain the murder is connected to Cha Tae-jun's secret audit and the sabotage. She believes someone killed Ju to hide something major. During the funeral, Ju's will is finally read to the shocked family. It grants her entire stake in Mirae Group to Do-hee, but only if Do-hee marries within 1 year of Ju's death. If she does not, everything reverts to a charitable foundation. The other relatives, who all hope to inherit, are furious. Do-hee calmly says they can stop her only by killing her. She then vows to uncover the truth behind Ju's suspicious death, even if it means joining forces with a demon. Late that night, Do-hee finds Gu-won again. She stands firm, telling him they must expose whoever murdered President Ju. Suddenly, her phone lights up with messages from family members. Ignoring them, she looks into Gu-won's eyes and declares, "Marry me." Surprised, he stares back, uncertain. But Do-hee stands resolute, explaining that it is the only way to keep control of Mirae, protect herself from assassination, and ensure Gu-won stays close enough to guard his precious tattoo. Gu-won processes her proposal, a faint hint of curiosity on his face. This alliance might serve both of their interests. Various relatives scheme to block Do-hee's sudden inheritance, while a hidden person lurks in the shadows, still intent on harming her. Gu-won, torn between demon pride and the need to preserve his powers, wonders if an unholy marriage with a human might be his next big contract. Do-hee impulsively asks Jeong Gu-won to marry her, calling it the biggest gamble of her life. He turns her down without hesitation, saying he never intended to marry anyone. Embarrassed and frustrated, Do-hee storms off and regrets making such a rash proposal. She reminds herself that she divides work from personal matters, so she tries to keep their arrangement strictly professional. The Mirae family sees how Do-hee was publicly rejected. Suk-min, President Ju's oldest son, talks about challenging the will again, suspecting they can prove Ju was not of sound mind. However, he remembers a time when Ju sent him to face the police for drunk driving, realizing she has always pushed him into harsh consequences. He vows to retaliate just as fiercely. Other relatives grumble that they have little legal recourse because Ju's will was fully validated. Riding in a car, Do-hee and Jeong exchange tense words. She insists that her sudden suggestion to marry was merely an accident made under stress. He shrugs, claiming her impulse is not his problem. She wonders why he acted as if he cared, only to reject her at the first chance. She asks him to turn on the radio, but every song references marriage or romance, making the atmosphere more awkward. She finally snaps at him to turn it off. Back at home, Do-hee opens a letter that President Ju left behind. Ju explains how lonely it felt to run Mirae alone and that she never wanted Do-hee to suffer the same solitude. The marriage clause in the will was meant to push Do-hee toward finding a real ally, not to trap her. Do-hee clutches the letter, thinking she must still uncover the truth behind Ju's suspicious death. She also feels that marriage is out of the question for now, especially after Gu-won's cold refusal. Meanwhile, Jeong grows annoyed that his demon powers remain weak. He tries to locate the man who attacked Do-hee with acid, but nothing happens. He wonders if being only half a demon has made him remember flashes of his old human name, Yi-soon, from centuries ago. His assistant Park jokes that perhaps he is truly mortal now, destined to age and die like an ordinary person. Jeong bristles at the idea, determined to recover his tattoo and restore his immortality. At the office, co-workers arrange a welcome gathering for Jeong, but Do-hee is also invited. They tease him about the widely rumored proposal and rejection. One colleague asks why he turned Do-hee down if he actually likes her. He replies that he might find her appealing, but one does not necessarily marry everything one likes. Offended, Do-hee leaves early, and the group senses the tension between them. Jeong feels guilty for humiliating her again, but insists he cannot fake any affection. Outside, Do-hee confronts Jeong about using her only as a charger for his powers. She says she is not a wireless station to boost his abilities whenever he pleases. He claims he has reasons. He needs enough strength to guard her, and without that mark, both of them are at risk. She refuses to let him simply hold her wrist at all times, and suggests he find another way to regain his powers. They part on bad terms. A group of street thugs suddenly ambushes Jeong. They are the same men he called trash in an earlier fight, now hungry for revenge. Realizing his reduced strength, he struggles to defend himself. Do-hee appears with a makeshift weapon, calling herself the bodyguard of my bodyguard. Together, they drive off the gang using a surprisingly coordinated strategy, which resembles a rhythmic dance. Jeong remarks that if she would let him recharge, he could handle such threats more easily. She retorts that saving him was her choice, not a sign she will become a permanent power station. Do-hee thinks back to President Ju's words about standing firm or simply relinquishing all claims if the loneliness becomes too overwhelming. She decides that she cannot walk away while questions remain about Ju's death. Jeong, for his part, notes that every time he helps Do-hee, he feels echoes of a life he barely remembers. He also mutters that she could die at any moment if he loses track of her. Their unspoken tension grows as they stand over the defeated attackers, each wondering how they ended up protecting the other. Suk-min, in a separate discussion, pressures board members to recognize him as president. Others argue that the will grants everything to Do-hee if she marries within a year. Some suggest she might choose any willing partner, though Do-hee states she will not marry simply for power. Jeong hears rumors that Do-hee could settle for another suitor. Despite insisting he has no interest in marriage, he bristles at the idea that she might choose someone else. He tries to tell himself that mortal emotions do not concern a demon, even one without full powers. Do-hee gathers more evidence for her private investigation, determined to find who tampered with Ju's medication. She and Jeong bicker over how best to track the culprit, but they see that Jeong's weakened abilities cannot conjure any quick solutions. He demands that she promise never to abandon him if they discover the truth. She agrees, though only if it ensures her safety and he recovers his powers. They glance at one another, both recalling the precarious dance they performed against the thugs, unsure how long they can keep their partnership purely practical. Do-hee rushes to save Jeong Gu-won from a group of thugs who corner him in a dark alley. He struggles, lacking most of his demon powers, and they prepare to finish him off. Do-hee appears, calling herself the bodyguard of my bodyguard, warning the thugs not to come closer. She laments that the recharge issue is always a problem and wonders why things keep happening at the worst moments. The attackers charge, but Do-hee and Jeong coordinate their moves, surprising them with an almost dance-like rhythm. One thug yells at his men to get their act together and stop dancing, but it's too late. Do-hee and Jeong overcome them with a swift combination of strikes and evasions. In the midst of that makeshift tango, Jeong remembers rules he once heard. Rule 1, never lose sight of her. Rule 2, never leave her side. said, Rule 3, never fall in love with her. He flinches, realizing his heart throbs uneasily. After the fight, Do-hee notices Jeong seems unwell. She suggests they leave before more trouble appears, but he suddenly pulls away and disappears into the night without explanation. She panics, calling out his name, but he slips out of her reach. Confused and worried, she boards a nearby subway car just before the doors close, thinking he might be inside. She finds no sign of him, and she wonders what he's hiding. The next morning, at the Sunwall Foundation, Gae-young, often called Estrella Jin, complains about injuring herself with a supposedly dull stage sword. She mutters that Jeong is absent yet again, leaving her rehearsal in disarray. She instructs her assistant to watch the props more carefully. Then she broods about Jeong's whereabouts, remembering she's been devoted to him for decades while he remains indifferent. She hears rumors that Jeong has become someone's bodyguard, but she refuses to believe he's interested in another woman. Jeong himself wakes at his office, bleeding from a minor cut. He scolds an assistant, asking why a decorative sword turned out to be sharpened. He grumbles about his life being in chaos since he lost his powers. He questions if someone wants him dead, or if he's just being paranoid, because nothing is going right. Park, his assistant, quietly suggests he might be half human now, explaining why he can feel pain and begin recalling past memories. Jeong denies having deeper emotions, though he admits something strange is going on with his heart. Do-hee later reflects on the tango-like fight. She wonders if she was the only one sensing a connection between them. She feels upset that Jeong left so suddenly, acting cold even after they saved each other. She resolves to stop chasing him. Her secretary Shin then reminds her she has another blind date scheduled, this time with a prosecutor named Choi Woo-soon. Do-hee believes she might need an ally with legal power if she plans to uncover corruption at Mirae. She agrees to meet him, insisting it's just for her investigations. At the office, co-workers notice tension between Jeong and Do-hee. Choi, a colleague, teases Jeong about the romance under the table, but Jeong barely pays attention. When Do-hee leaves for her blind date, Jeong hears about it too late. He claims he doesn't care, but his mood sours. Do-hee meets prosecutor Choi at a fancy restaurant. He puts on exaggerated charm, offering wine in broad daylight, ordering an abundance of food, and making grand statements about her future success. Do-hee's bodyguard stands nearby, but she barely tolerates Choi's flirtations. Choi abruptly proposes that they register their marriage the same day. He thinks this will give her immediate advantage, as Juswoo demands marriage within a year. She coolly agrees, saying it's purely strategic. He looks thrilled, but Do-hee seems half-hearted. She texts someone that the wedding may happen tomorrow. Gu-won finds out about her plan through co-workers' gossip. He scoffs at the idea that Do-hee might marry a slimy government employee, but he tells himself it's not his concern. He also mentions he and Do-hee have parted ways, so he can't blame her choices. Meanwhile, a scene shows one of the street gangs. Their new boss complains they've lost their prestige because of that demon-like man. Another thug is hired through a shady online chat. The mercenary calls himself Abraxas and encourages the gang to keep hunting Do-hee. He mentions that with Jeong gone, she'll be easy prey. The conversation hints that more attacks are coming. Do-hee's relative Suk-min is declared acting president of Mirae by the board, while she stands by, visibly unhappy with the speed of these changes. Suk-min pretends to be gracious, but once alone, he shows an iron-fisted approach, threatening others to secure his power. Later, Do-hee rides in a car with her cousin Seok-hoon, explaining she found suspicious transactions in Mirae's past accounts. Seok-hoon tries to help. She glances at her wrist tattoo, thinking of Jeong. She says if the real culprit surfaces, she won't need him as a guard. Yet she remembers him fighting for her and wonders if she's truly ready to let him go. By evening, Do-hee and Jeong cross paths again outside a building. He sees her wearing a somber expression, and she accuses him of causing her life to spiral into chaos. He angrily retorts that everything was ruined for him the moment she stole his demon mark. They argue, each blaming the other for constant trouble. Do-hee declares that if her life was better before he arrived, they should just end their association. She says she'll manage her own safety and marry whoever she wants. Jeong snaps that he won't bother saving her anymore. They stare at each other in frustration. Neither can deny the complicated mixture of protection, anger, and hidden attachment. Without resolving anything, they turn away, as if refusing to acknowledge that both keep looking back. Do-hee was thinking, fear grows like a tumor when I'm alone. Jeong's name means salvation, but each time I see the mark on my wrist, I wonder if I've signed away my soul. My adoptive family has always been a battlefield, Now, it's turning into a war zone I can't escape. There's an old legend about a demon who wandered the countryside at night, searching for lost souls. People said this demon took on a human form to blend in, offering desperate villagers a false sense of security. No one could tell if the demon truly desired to protect them or devour them. Over the years, whispers of those vanished souls lingered like faint echoes, warning that all supernatural gifts carry a cost. Do-hee meets an internal investigator from Mirae Foods, who claims to have found evidence linking No Soo-an to the sugar scandal. Shredded documents and hidden emails point to Soo-an's involvement, but Do-hee isn't convinced it's that simple. She remembers the moment her sister told her, "You don't belong here," a phrase still echoing in her mind. Cha Tae-jun reappears, hinting there's a bigger plot involving Ju Cheon-suk himself. Do-hee wonders if she's just a pawn between Ju and his biological daughter. Jeong stands by a window in an upper floor office, watching the lights of Seoul spread out below. His assistant hands him a file containing background checks on every member of Mirae Group's board. He flips through the pages calmly, pausing at photos of Do-hee and No Soo-an. He murmurs that human hearts are predictable. Everyone carries a wish they're willing to pay for. At a board meeting, Ju Cheon-suk announces a major expansion of Mirae's beverage line, demanding total secrecy. Some executives look uneasy. Soo-an sits quietly, her smile never reaching her eyes. Do-hee feels the tension as Ju stares at her, challenging her loyalty with a single gaze. Afterward, Soo-an corners Do-hee in the corridor, asking if she really thinks she can outsmart everyone. She hints at a hidden clause in the company's bylaws that might strip Do-hee of any inheritance if certain conditions are met. Do-hee tries to confront Ju about these suspicions, but Ju remains evasive. He insists she focus on winning the public's trust after the sugar scandal. He mentions that the next set of blind dates is approaching, implying the family expects Do-hee to cement alliances through marriage. Feeling cornered, Do-hee recalls the night Jeong saved her on the cliff. She looks again at the mark on her wrist, which grows darker whenever she feels anxious. In her office, Do-hee reads an ancient text about demons who choose a mortal companion, leaving a mark that binds them together. The text recounts a vow. Through shadow and flame, the demon shall stand, but salvation lies only in the mortal's hands. She can't understand how it connects to Jeong, yet she suspects he's not just a corporate pawn. That evening, Jin Ga-young appears unannounced at Jeong's penthouse. She's in a dazzling red dress, her dance shoes dangling from one hand. The assistant hesitates to let her in, but Jeong allows it. Ga-young demands to know why he's grown fixated on Do-hee. She mentions rumors that Jeong hasn't claimed a contract from Do-hee, no payment for saving her life. Jeong responds that humans are more interesting when they're on the brink of despair, and that Do-hee still hasn't realized the full extent of what she promised. At a late hour, Do-hee visits an upscale bar to meet Cha Tae-jun, who says he has the final piece of evidence about the sugar scandal. He slides over a USB drive, warning her it could destroy the entire Mirae family if it goes public. Do-hee hesitates, feeling like she's being pushed onto a tightrope without a safety net. She recalls how Ju once told her, "There is no room for weakness in this family." Moments later, a figure steps out of the shadows. It's Jeong, watching from a distance. When their eyes meet, Do-hee's heart pounds. She senses he's here to remind her of the deal she made the night he saved her. He casually remarks that bargains are like seeds. Eventually, they sprout, no matter how deeply you bury them. No Soo-an suddenly appears outside the bar. Noticing Jeong and Do-hee together, she slips away, texting someone rapidly. Do-hee's phone buzzes with an anonymous message warning her that more than one demon might be hiding behind human masks. Do-hee wonders if she's stepped into a labyrinth, with Ju, Soo-an, Cha Tae-jun, and now Jeong, all holding pieces of her fate. She grips the USB drive, torn between her desire to protect Mirae Foods and her fear of becoming a sacrificial pawn. Her thoughts loop. I'm surrounded by illusions. If I can't trust humans, is it safer to trust a demon? Jeong's voice echoes in her mind. I only grant what you are desperate enough to beg for. But remember, nothing is free. Do-hee dials emergency services, but the call does not go through. She shouts for help, yet the line fails. The elevator is broken. She rushes up the emergency stairs, feeling someone behind her. She sees a figure who takes pleasure in her fear. She screams, begging them to stop. Jeong Gu-won appears and calls her name. He pulls her to safety, asking if she is hurt. She can barely speak, overwhelmed by shock. He tells her to stay calm, because it is over for now. Later, Do-hee and Jeong examine the building's electronic lock, which was tampered with. She recalls how the attacker enjoyed her terror, almost as if they were there just to watch her die. She remembers the eerie song the assailant played. They realize the person who tried to kill Do-hee might change faces. Jeong connects it to the scratches on various suspects, including a driver who attacked her earlier. In another conversation, Seok-hoon demands to know how Jeong rescued her. He senses Do-hee is hiding something. Jeong only says that if Do-hee does not share details, she must have her her reasons. Do-hee confesses she never truly understood the fear of death until now. She worries that anyone around her, a guard, a colleague, could be the attacker in disguise. She feels certain the killer will return. Seok-hoon proposes marriage, wanting to keep her safe. She seems surprised by his sudden request. Soon after, Jeong also talks about marrying Do-hee. He admits he rejected the idea before, but he has changed his mind. Jeong simply says he is serious. A wedding follows between Do-hee and Jeong. Relatives, friends, and others from Mirae Group attend. No Soo-an and others watch, suspecting Do-hee is marrying for inheritance. In private, Do-hee and Jeong sign a simple marriage contract that states they will appear as the perfect couple in public, but respect each other's personal space otherwise. When asked to kiss, they briefly hesitate, then share a public display of affection to maintain the image. Seok-hoon offers congratulations, but still seems torn. Do-hee thanks him, calling him her true family. That night, Do-hee and Jeong move into her place. He notices it is messy from the attacker's break-in. She jokes that he should cook for her, but he reminds her he is her husband, not her servant. They share awkward moments adjusting to living together. Meanwhile, Seok-hoon investigates the past of the Foundation's Sunwol and stumbles upon something related to No Do-gyong. He suspects No Do-gyong might be tied to Do-hee's attacks. In another location, No Do-gyong violently lashes out at someone. Do-hee and Jeong decide to follow Do-gyong, hoping to catch him meeting the person who can change faces. He slips away when they get too close. Jeong tries to use his unusual abilities. They find nothing in the locker except the impression that Do-gyong is very clever at hiding his tracks. She clutches Jeong's arm, unwilling to let the killer stay one step ahead. Do-hee and Jeong chase down No Do-gyong, suspecting he's behind many problems. They keep investigating but decide to back off for the day because Do-gyong is too cautious. Do-gyong's caretaker urges him to keep seeing a psychiatrist, but he dismisses the idea. Meanwhile, Jeong begins to worry his powers are weakening more often. Jeong blames Do-hee, claiming that ever since she appeared, strange things have happened. His demon tattoo transferred to her wrist, and his abilities sometimes vanish. At home, Jeong dumps a huge collection of personal items in Do-hee's apartment, crowding the space. They argue over how to live together without stepping on each other's boundaries. After a minor fight, Jeong storms out and sleeps in his car. Their marriage is clearly a contract rather than a warm union. Do-hee insists she won't call him back, but they still look out for each other, each too proud to admit it. Elsewhere, Seok-hoon digs into Jeong's background. He shows Do-hee an old newspaper photo from 1977, featuring someone who looks exactly like Jeong. Do-hee is unsure how to explain, and Seok-hoon directly tells Jeong he suspects him of being non-human. But Seok-hoon vows he will not let Do-hee be harmed, and threatens to expose Jeong's secret if necessary. Jin Ga-young, a dancer and someone who once encountered Jeong, disappears from rehearsals. Eventually, she resurfaces, drunk and angry, clinging to Jeong because he saved her before. She believes his recent marriage is just a show. Jeong ends up bringing her home safely. He also grows uneasy because he keeps having dreams about his past human life. A troublemaking blogger accuses Do-hee of orchestrating Ju Cheon-suk's death for the inheritance. Rumors explode online, damaging both Do-hee's reputation and Mirae Group's image. Do-hee faces a relentless media storm, while No Suk-min and his family clearly push these stories to sabotage her. Jeong teleports the blogger into a vault full of cash, threatening to leave him there if he doesn't retract the lies. A mysterious figure steals Jeong's demon manual from his office, apparently with plans to expose his weaknesses or kill him. The manual says demons can't commit certain acts like murder or reversing death. Another passage reveals that if a demon's powers fail at key moments, it might mean he's growing more human. Meanwhile, a shadowy person urges others to kill Jeong, insisting that once he dies, someone else can become the new devil. The police arrive and arrest her for Ju Cheon-suk's murder. In the final moments, Jeong rushes to save her. A blade comes out of nowhere, targeting Jeong. He collapses, leaving Do-hee terrified that he might be gravely wounded. Aeong collapses after being stabbed, and medical staff rush him into the operating room. Tension runs high as they note heavy bleeding and a damaged heart valve. Meanwhile, Do-hee, recently released by the police, learns of Jeong's injury and insists on leaving the station to see him. In the hospital corridor, nurses push Jeong towards surgery, warning that he has lost too much blood. Jeong abruptly regains consciousness. His demon-like abilities have partially healed him, hoping that physical closeness can recharge what remains of his strength. Though they don't fully understand how this works, she obliges, and they share an awkward moment that restores him enough to speak clearly. Ga-young appears, agitated. She accuses Do-hee of being selfish and using Jeong's vulnerability. Elsewhere, Do-hee's team at Mirae Foods notes that public opinion has shifted. News outlets that once labeled Do-hee a murderer now recant, shocked by Jeong's stabbing. People feel sympathy for her and question who orchestrated the false accusations. Do-hee announces her decision to withdraw withdraw from the race for the company presidency. She tells the board she is tired of endless conflict and wants no further bloodshed. Many are stunned, unsure if her move is genuine or if she's been coerced. Losing more loved ones, for instance Jeong, would be too painful. Jeong recovers in a hospital bed. On the surface he appears fine. A group calling themselves the Perros Salvajes arrives uninvited, calling him boss and sending inappropriate flower stands. Jeong, annoyed by their antics, tells them to keep their distance. Their devotion is oddly comical, but it underscores the chaos swirling around him. When Jeong finds out Do-hee's plan, he realizes she gave up everything to protect him from further harm. He insists that he will not leave, regardless of the danger. She admits that his near death shook her, and she refuses to see him die. Though Gae-young warned him about turning human, about possibly losing his demon powers, he presses on, determined that nothing will separate him from Do-hee. Jeong senses his supernatural powers may be slipping further. He has nightmares of being consumed by flames, a sign that a demon who oversteps certain boundaries might face deadly consequences. Still, he stands at Do-hee's side, ignoring the chance that mortality could overtake him. Both are resolved to protect each other from a hidden enemy who knows more about Jeong's secret than anyone else. Uncertain how long his diminished strength will hold, he chooses to remain. In his own words, caring for Do-hee has become his destiny, and he cannot fight it. Do-hee finds solace in realizing that her sacrifice, giving up the presidency and her inheritance, protects the one she cares about. She recalls all the people she has lost, including her parents and Ju Cheon-suk. She worries Jeong will be the next to die, but Jeong dismisses such fear, telling her he does not mind risking his life. As they share a quiet moment, Do-hee notices his stab wound is still healing. She tries to protect it from getting wet, concerned he might open it again. He smiles and insists his powers have returned, at least enough to make him feel confident. Their daily routines turn lighthearted. Jeong, determined to act more human, proposes they eat at a regular restaurant instead of reserving it all for themselves. He wonders why there is no couple's menu except on Christmas, then jokes about humans celebrating the birth of Jesus with cakes and excitement. Do-hee teases him for his sudden fascination with mundane things, and he admits he never imagined he would enjoy such small, insignificant pleasures. They ride tandem bicycles along the river and take silly photos in a booth, each new activity making them laugh. Jeong marvels that living among people can be comforting, and remarks that humans, while frail, can also be adorable. Elsewhere, Soo-an secretly observes them, snapping pictures to uncover Do-hee's true face. She feels perplexed that Do-hee and Jeong appear genuinely happy, and wonders if it is all a facade. Meanwhile, Seok-hoon grows uneasy about Jeong's quick recovery. He presses Jeong for answers, pointing out how impossible it seems to bounce back so fast from a near-fatal stabbing. Jeong remains evasive, claiming that his thirst for vengeance drives him onward. Seok-hoon's suspicions deepen, yet he gets no proof of Jeong's true nature. During this relative calm, Do-hee relaxes, believing the battle for the Mirae presidency has ended. She goes out with her secretary Shin to celebrate a newfound sense of freedom. Shin recalls her own ill-fated marriage, describing how it revealed her weaknesses and strengths. The conversation leads Do-hee to reflect on how letting go has brought her an unexpected peace. Over drinks, both become tipsy. Do-hee calls Jeong her maridito and begs him for a piggyback ride. Though it is morning, she keeps sipping happiness, giggling that they are no longer drinking alcohol but pure delight. Jeong feels affection for her growing bond with normal life, yet remains guarded, always watching for hidden dangers. Word comes that the hired assailant, Gi Kwang-chul, has been found dead in a fire. The police discover a knife through his heart, embedded after he died in the flames. The violent scene implies that whoever ordered Kwang-chul's attacks eliminated him to cover their tracks. Jeong suspects someone who knew about his powers must have orchestrated it. The presence of a hidden microphone in Do-hee's apartment supports the idea that they were being spied on. Both realize the conspirator is still at large, and Kwang-chul's death only frees them of the immediate assassin. Do-hee faces confusion, uncertain whether truly everything is over or if a more powerful figure stands behind these events. Jeong, unsettled by repeated hints that his powers might not be fully back, seeks answers from a strange beggar woman he encountered once before. She reveals herself as God or the universe, claiming to be the source of his abilities. She explains his demon powers are fading permanently because they were transferred to the wrong body when he saved Do-hee. Since they no longer properly reside in him, they are vanishing. Jeong demands a way to restore them, but she gives only one grim option. Regaining his powers would require Do-hee's death. Horrified, he refuses to consider harming Do-hee. At the same time, No Suk-min maneuvers to finalize his takeover. He aims to prove to the Mirae board that he alone can ensure a stable succession. Confident that Do-hee withdrew, he no longer expects trouble from her side. He remains unaware that Jeong and Do-hee are investigating the truth, assisted by Seok-hoon and a ragtag group calling themselves the Perros Salvajes, or jokingly, Semillas de Perilla y Cebolletas. Jeong orders them to track suspicious individuals, but they only turn up hints that lead to dead ends, other than Kwang-chul's murder scene. Jeong finally understands he is turning fully human, no longer able to teleport or sense danger. Nightmares of combusting in flames loom in his mind. Despite this, he stays close to Do-hee, unwilling to reveal that his own life now depends on her survival. He resolves that no matter what God or the universe says, he will stand by Do-hee, even if that choice means forfeiting the powers he once held and risking a deadly fate he can no longer avoid. Jeong stands in front of a mysterious woman who claims to be God or the universe. He demands that she restore his demon powers, but she says she cannot. She never took them from him. The real problem, she explains, is that his abilities transferred to the wrong body when he saved Do-hee, so they are slowly vanishing. Jeong realizes he is dying. If Do-hee does not die before the upcoming full moon, his powers will disappear completely and he will die by spontaneous combustion. However, if Do-hee were to perish, the demon tattoo would revert to Jeong, saving his life. Jeong refuses to accept a fate that requires Do-hee's death, but God simply notes that the world is messy because of innumerable human choices. Meanwhile, Seok-hoon meets with an anonymous informant who insists Jeong is the devil, bringing misfortune to humans. The informant claims Do-hee is simply a source of powers for Jeong. Horrified, Seok-hoon fears that Jeong may betray her. Alone, Jeong grapples with the ultimatum. If Do-hee lives and the tattoo does not return by the full moon, he will burn to death. If she dies, he survives. Desperate, he tries to hide the truth from her. She bakes him a makeshift cake, hoping to celebrate the birthday he never had, symbolizing the day he might become a fully restored demon. It turns out salty by accident, but Jeong pretends it tastes good. She talks about their plan to revisit Seokcho Beach, the place where her tattoo first transferred onto her. They hope reenacting that night under the full moon will bring his abilities back without harming anyone. As they prepare to leave, Jeong Gu-won, who knows Jeong's secret, confronts Do-hee. She reveals the harsh reality. Jeong will die if the transfer fails, and if Do-hee dies instead, Jeong's powers will return. Gu-won begs Do-hee to choose death and save Jeong. Stunned, Do-hee reels from the revelation and storms off, demanding that Jeong confirm the truth. Jeong insists Ga-young's claims are nonsense, but Do-hee senses his distress and flees to gather her thoughts. Meanwhile, Seok-hoon calls Do-hee, shouting that she must separate from Jeong if she wants to survive. But Do-hee cannot believe Jeong would ever harm her. By day's end, the newly ascendant No Suk-min becomes president of Mirae Group. Elsewhere, a horrifying clue emerges. The assassin Gi Kwang-chul was murdered with the same knife used on Jeong. Police suspect the murder is linked to covering tracks. Late that evening, Do-hee meets Jeong at Seokcho. She tearfully says they have no choice but to try again. She is ready to do whatever it takes so both can survive. The two recall the night the tattoo first transferred, hoping the same full moon conditions will reverse it. Jeong admits if it fails, he will die, but if it succeeds, they can save each other. They are determined to brave the sea again. Before they can act, someone sets the building on fire, trapping Do-hee inside. Jeong, still in a weakened state, rushes in to save her, ignoring Ga-young's pleas that letting Do-hee die will restore his powers. He rescues her from the flames, holding her tight. In that moment, the demon tattoo suddenly returns to his arm. God's prediction comes true. As Do-hee hovers on the brink, the mark reverts to Jeong. Flames swirl, but Do-hee manages to cling to life. He pulls her to safety outside, just as rescue teams arrive. In the aftermath, Jeong has regained his full demon abilities. No more need for recharging, no more threat of combustion. Yet, he seems troubled. The next day, he experiences unsettling dreams of his human past, and wonders if part of him still longs to remain human. He questions how Do-hee survived the inferno, and who arranged it. They suspect a leak because the killer knew precisely where they would be. Jin Ga-young, realizing what nearly happened, feels remorse remorseful, while Seok-hoon senses the bigger conspiracy is far from over. Despite regaining his powers, Jeong appears haunted by memories of his mortal life and by Do-hee's desperate choice to save him. They stand at a crossroads. He is once again the demon he once was, yet his bond with Do-hee remains. Both must uncover who targeted them at Sokcho and decide what it truly means for a demon to love a human who nearly died to keep him alive. Jeong clutches Do-hee's unconscious body in the aftermath of the fiery incident at Sokcho, astonished to discover that the demon tattoo has returned to his own arm. Surviving against all odds, Do-hee awakens soon after, and both find relief in having come back from the brink of death. Jeong realizes his powers have fully reawakened, returning him to his perfect demon state. Watching Do-hee test her own injuries, he insists she rest, determined to protect her. Yet Do-hee, ever responsible, insists she must go back to work. When they arrive at Mirae Foods the next day, Jeong struts confidently in a flashy suit, then changes to matching outfits with Do-hee at her prompting, though he jokes about the color choices. Reunited in the office, Do-hee greets her co-workers, while Jeong muses over how humans function at their mundane jobs. Despite his regained powers, he maintains a playful camaraderie with Do-hee, teleporting around and declaring he can do anything. Meanwhile, the ragtag group called Semillas de Perilla y Cebolletas, formerly the Perros Salvajes, returns. Overjoyed that Jeong survived, they deliver him a gift. He curtly reminds them he's their boss, even though they cheer him as the jefe they idolize. Separately, Bok-gyu appears carrying a large box, leading Do-hee and Jeong to think he might be a mole. However, they soon learn the box just holds a secret cake for Shin, whom Bok-gyu has been courting. It turns out Bok-gyu and Shin shared an amusing, slightly embarrassing moment while drunk and began dating. Relieved that no foul play is involved, Do-hee and Jeong acknowledge their mistake in suspecting Shin. Elsewhere, No Suk-min meets with Seok-hoon under the pretense of a friendly visit, but Seok-hoon senses something odd: mention of No Do-gyong's mysterious absence and a suspicious green book labeled Demonio. Seok-hoon later informs Do-hee that Suk-min offered an investment deal out of nowhere, raising concern. Do-hee and Seok-hoon suspect deeper motives. Not long after, they discover that No Do-gyong has confessed to multiple murders, including orchestrating Ju Cheon-suk's demise. He exhibits severe mental instability, raving that a devil inside him compelled him to kill. Though Do-hee confronts him directly, demanding the truth of whether he murdered her beloved mentor, his mind is too fractured for clarity. Suk-min arranges to keep his son's condition hidden, insisting Do-gyong must face consequences, while also protecting the family name. Despite Do-gyong's confession, certain details do not line up. He claims he followed the devil's orders and only partially admits involvement in Ju Cheon-suk's death. The police struggle to determine whether he's truly mentally ill or pretending for a lighter sentence. Do-hee, unconvinced this fully explains the murder attempt on her own life, resumes searching for the ultimate mastermind. Meanwhile, Jeong resumes granting wishes to desperate humans, one of whom is an elderly man wishing to see his ailing wife recognize him again. Jeong briefly reunites the couple in her memory, enough for the woman to say a final farewell. Strangely, Jeong finds himself shedding tears, something he adamantly denies, attributing it to sweating through my eyes. He resents these human-like emotions, yet cannot fully suppress them. Jin Ga-young approaches both Do-hee and Jeong, expressing her own inner conflict. Though she once attempted to push Do-hee aside, she now claims relief that both survived. She tells Jeong she feels she must keep an eye on him, part of her still worried he could harm Do-hee. Amused, Jeong dismisses her warnings, but promises not to let Ga-young's suspicions get between him and Do-hee. One evening, Seok-hoon, in a drunken state, confronts Jeong. He confesses he feels calmer, knowing Do-hee has a powerful guardian, but warns that if Jeong ever betrays her, he will personally find a way to destroy him, even threatening to become a priest to exorcise the devil. Jeong humors him, nodding to their uneasy truce. Despite the outward calm, Jeong experiences haunting dreams of his former human life. He sees a vision of a woman named Wol-sim, someone from centuries past. He learns from God, or the universe, that he may have erased these painful memories. The dream implies Jeong murdered Wol-sim, and he wakes in a sweat, unsettled that he still holds such human feelings. Burdened by guilt he does not fully comprehend, Jeong fears that these forgotten sins may have gravely shaped his fate. Nonetheless, he remains steadfast in his promise to Do-hee, determined to protect her and refusing ever to leave her side, no matter what dark secrets from his past may resurface. Seo Yi-sun is a young nobleman in Joseon. Everyone adores and respects him, although he sometimes acts a bit arrogantly. He occasionally avoids his duties in order to stroll around and admire flowers, or simply enjoy nature. One day, he meets a mysterious woman by a waterfall. She doesn't seem at all impressed by his reputation. Later, he learns her name is Wol-sim, a government courtesan. Yi-sun is captivated by her beauty and by how confident she is. Rumor has it that Wol-sim refused to dance for a high-ranking official in Hanyang, which got her exiled to a small village. Yi-sun feels drawn to her and starts studying diligently, determined to change the world and break down the social barrier between them. He talks to Wol-sim about the concept of equality he learned from Western writings, emphasizing that all human beings are children of the Lord and therefore deserve equal respect. This inspires him to pass the state examination and reform society. Wol-sim doesn't trust love. She believes love leads only to misfortune, since her best friend died because of a forbidden relationship. Nevertheless, she slowly finds herself falling for Yi-sun. He persuades her that love can save people. He plans to marry her and run away if necessary. He gives her a small keepsake, asking her to remember him. She promises not to take it off until he returns from his journey to Hanyang. He aims to succeed in the exam and create a future where they can be together, despite their difference in social status. Meanwhile, the authorities begin a crackdown on Catholics. Someone needs a scapegoat to protect the interests of powerful nobles. They accuse Wol-sim of spreading Catholic teachings and arrest her. They find the ornament Yi-sun gave her and suspect a noble is involved. They demand Wol-sim reveal who gave it to her, but she refuses to betray Yi-sun. As a result, she is sentenced to death. Yi-sun returns and finds Wol-sim at death's door. He is overwhelmed with grief and blames those who sacrificed her. He loses his faith, becoming cruel and vengeful. In his rage, he convinces himself that love cannot save anyone and that God has abandoned him. The tragedy pushes him to become a being filled with hatred. In the end, he remembers that he was once human and that, in that previous life, he killed and witnessed the deaths of those he cared about. In the present, Jeong Gu-won awakens from that nightmare and thinks back on his past as Seo Yi-sun. Do-hee notices he looks pale, but he doesn't offer details. Shortly afterward, No Do-gyong, the man who killed Do-hee's grandmother, is confirmed dead. It's suspected he took his own life out of guilt. Do-gyong's father wants to conceal the scandal to protect the family's and the company's reputation. Do-hee laments the fact that everything ends without genuine accountability. Jin Ga-young, the famous dancer, prepares to leave Korea. She explains she feels hurt, seeing how Gu-won looks at Do-hee with the tenderness she longed for herself. She doesn't want to keep suffering in a place that only brings painful memories. Before departing, she gives one last performance and thanks Gu-won for inspiring her passion for dance. Gu-won feels tormented. He now knows that, in his previous life, he truly loved someone and that this love caused her death. He blames himself and fears the same tragedy could befall Do-hee. He admits this fear to her, believing that if they stay close, she might share Wol-sim's fate. Do-hee responds that she would be miserable without him anyway, so she would rather fight by his side. He recalls words he once spoke as Yi-sun. He would prefer to sink into misfortune with the woman he loves than live without her. Someone mentions that Ju Cheon-suk, the woman who adopted Do-hee, might have been responsible for the death of Do-hee's biological parents. More family intrigues and dark secrets come to light. Scenes of prayers appear, asking for divine aid to fight evil and keep the demon from stealing souls. Gu-won realizes that he does not want to lose the person he loves once again. He thinks that maybe destiny can be changed if he makes a different choice this time. He becomes certain he does not want to repeat his unhappy story as Seo Yi-sun. He looks at Do-hee and decides to stay with her, even if danger returns. She, for her part, seems ready to give up everything rather than be apart from him. They exchange a look that shows their desire to find a chance for happiness together. Seo Yi-sun, in his past life, took his own life so as not to go to heaven. Now, in the present, he goes by Jeong Gu-won and is a demon who longs to change his tragic past. He wants to protect Do-hee, with whom he was connected in another life. She also struggles emotionally. She suffered the death of her parents and later lost the woman who adopted her, President Ju Cheon-suk. These events made her distrust happiness, believing that whenever she feels joy, her life collapses. Meanwhile, Ju Seok-hoon, Ju Cheon-suk's brother, calls the family together for a meeting. He says he feels lonely at the helm of Mirae Group and seeks everyone's support to consolidate his power. He discusses his plans and suggests it would be better if they handed over their shares to him. Several family members reject the idea and accuse him of wanting drastic reforms, like reducing work hours and dismantling a major compensation committee that Cheon-suk herself founded to protect workers and accident victims. Do-hee cannot remain on the sidelines. She is furious because her adoptive grandmother, Mrs. Ju, died recently and justice has yet to be served. She leaves in a state of confusion, uncertain how much is real and how much is manipulation. Suk-min's words and her own memories blur together, leaving her in shock. More evidence emerges, and everyone begins accusing one another of past crimes or ruthless ambitions to control the company. A power struggle looms, and Do-hee feels trapped in another emotional upheaval. Gu-won wants to protect her, but senses the situation might play out again in the same way. Do-hee is shaken after discovering that Suk-min, recently appointed president of Mirae Group, orchestrated terrible crimes. He caused his own mother's death and framed his son, Do-gyong, for it. He also tried to harm Do-hee to protect his ambition. Eventually, he jumps off a building, and his body is nowhere to be found. The police search for him, but rumors say he might have fled or died. Everyone at Mirae Group is left in shock because their president turns out to be a criminal who manipulated the family for power. Jeong Gu-won tries to soothe Do-hee, who feels guilty about all the tragedies. She questions whether she did something wrong to deserve the constant losses in her life. Suk-min's final words haunt her. He accused her beloved adoptive mother, Ju Cheon-suk, of causing the car crash that killed Do-hee's parents many years ago. Do-hee wants to believe it is a lie, but the possibility unsettles her. Jeong encourages her to remember the last text message from Ju, a loving message sent moments before Ju died. He thinks it proves Ju Cheon-suk truly cared for Do-hee and could not have murdered her parents. Despite these comforting words, Do-hee remains uneasy. Kim Se-ra, the wife of Suk-min, steps forward as a witness. She reveals all the evidence he had collected against relatives, especially the part he used to destroy his mother and grandson. Kim Se-ra delivers documents to the police, ensuring that Suk-min's crimes will be fully exposed. The authorities investigate the entire story, including the new possibility that Suk-min arranged or hid Ju Cheon-suk's accident. The public grows more curious about the missing president's fate. Some suspect he is dead, yet others wonder if he survived. The lingering questions attract reporters who wait outside Mirae Group's building, eager to question Do-hee about the disturbing revelations. At the same time, old secrets come to light about Ju Cheon-suk's first encounter with a demon. A priest named Michael speaks with Do-hee. He admits that Ju often confessed her darkest fears and regrets. She felt tormented by hidden sins related to the company's industrial accidents. She also lived with guilt over events that threatened employees' lives. Although the priest cannot break confidentiality of private confession, he tells Do-hee that Ju Cheon-suk's regret was genuine. He explains that Ju had a radical change of heart one night after meeting an otherworldly being. According to him, this meeting kept her from sliding into a demonic path. Do-hee deduces that this being could have been Jeong Gu-won, who has wandered the earth for 2 centuries, granting wishes in exchange for people's souls. As she digs deeper, Do-hee remembers rumors that her father might have bargained with a demon when he was desperate to save someone in the past. She recalls clues about a strange contract. In Jeong's private office, there is a green notebook listing the names of many individuals who made deals with him. One name is Do-won-jun, which is the same as Do-hee's late father. She realizes her father's deal may have saved her or extended his life. She also realizes Ju Cheon-suk witnessed that deal. This knowledge torments her because if her father died under a demon contract, Ju might have tried to stop it, or might have concealed it. She cannot reconcile the fact that Ju was a protective mother figure while also hating devastating secrets. Jeong feels guilty for repeating a cycle of misfortune. He believes that the more he loves Do-hee, the more she suffers. Despite trying to help her, he thinks a demon's fate can only bring sorrow. He disappears from Do-hee's side, convinced that his absence might spare her more pain. Meanwhile, Do-hee feels abandoned by everyone she once depended on: her birth parents, her adoptive mother, and now Jeong himself. She wonders if love always leads to separation and heartache. Do-hee struggles with the emptiness left behind after Jeong Gu-won disappears. Even though she carries on with her business responsibilities at Mirae Foods, she feels his absence in everyday moments. Co-workers notice that she works longer hours and rarely takes breaks. Shin, her close friend and colleague, gently advises her not to bury her emotions under busy tasks. Do-hee pretends she is doing fine, but she often stands alone, calling out Gu-won's name, hoping he might reappear. Meanwhile, Do-hee remembers how Ju Cheon-suk once confessed that loving someone can bring suffering. Ju struggled with guilt for years, yet still cherished Do-hee deeply. Recalling that conversation, Do-hee wonders if Gu-won also felt conflict about their relationship. She confides in Shin that she keeps sensing Gu-won's presence. Late at night, she thinks she sees him or feels his warmth. Shin explains this is normal after a painful separation, but Do-hee remains convinced that fragments of him linger around her. Jeong Gu-won, on the other hand, truly has left. He tells Park Bok-gyu, his friend at the Sunwall Theater, that he must go away so Do-hee can find happiness without him. He believes his demonic nature inevitably causes harm. Although Gu-won attempts to vanish, one night Do-hee faces unexpected danger. A figure appears, revealed to be no Suk-min in disguise. He survived his jump, but scarred his face so nobody would recognize him. Blaming Do-hee and Gu-won for losing everything, his power, family, and status, he stalks Do-hee to exact revenge. He wields a knife, threatening to kill her unless she brings Gu-won out of hiding. Do-hee tries to explain that Gu-won is gone and will not come for her. No Suk-min does not believe her and presses the blade to her throat, demanding Jeong Gu-won show himself. Right then, Gu-won suddenly appears. Having sensed Do-hee's peril, consumed by rage, he nearly kills No Suk-min with supernatural force. Do-hee begs him to stop, worried that taking a human life would destroy Gu-won himself. The fight ends as No Suk-min's energy drains away, though it is unclear whether he dies on the spot or succumbs to injuries. Do-hee collapses, and Gu-won rushes to save her. She sees that he has indeed returned, but looks weak after restraining his power. Then, Do-hee is stabbed or hurt in the midst of the struggle, and Gu-won must choose. Save her at any cost, even if it means burning his own existence, or watch her die. Gu-won uses his last remaining demonic power to save Do-hee, cradling her and assuring her that everything is fine now. He admits he could not abandon her, no matter how hard he tried. As Do-hee comes to, she pleads with him not to leave again. She confesses how much she has missed him and how she almost lost hope. Gu-won says he has missed her too, yet cannot deny his destructive nature. However, seeing her wounded forces him to realize he would rather risk himself than lose her. Moments later, Do-hee desperately tries to keep him from fading away. Under the shock of the injury and the strain on Gu-won's demon powers, they slip out of sight. Do-hee calls his name, begging him to remain. In the aftermath, all that remains is confusion as to whether Gu-won can survive after using so much power. Friends at Mirae Foods worry about Do-hee's condition. They visit her, realizing how poorly she is coping. She cannot sense Gu-won anywhere, and her guilt pushes her into despair. While dealing with the emptiness, she holds on to the old demon contract book and begs for a way to bring Gu-won back. Around Christmas, she experiences what seems like a dream or vision that brings her to a mysterious place. Gu-won stands there, using the last of his supernatural power to appear again. His presence becomes a miraculous reunion. He explains that they remain connected because her wish was strong and certain, forces allowed him to return. Back in the normal world, Do-hee wakes up to find Gu-won truly beside her. Shin, Ga-young, and Bok-gyu all feel relieved that he is alive. Gu-won resumes his unusual life, taking demon deals from desperate individuals, but ensuring he does not let them harm innocent people. He also confesses to Do-hee that being separated felt like a living hell. Do-hee learns more about how, years ago, her father made a contract with Gu-won to save the family after a serious car accident. Her father paid the ultimate price, but it allowed Do-hee and her mother to live longer. Understanding this truth reduces her guilt. No Suk-min, locked away in prison, rants that he destroyed them both. However, his fantasy is shattered because Do-hee and Gu-won continue living their own lives. Do-hee returns to Mirae Group, which she helps modernize according to Ju Cheon-suk's more ethical vision. Do-hee and Gu-won sometimes argue over little things, like her late work nights and his demon deals with questionable individuals. But they always make up quickly. Their small quarrels show that they are learning how to share a normal life together, despite his supernatural background. Even if Gu-won is a demon, he has chosen a path of helping Do-hee and preventing further misery. He overcame his destiny of endless destruction and discovered the value of human warmth. Please subscribe and leave a comment sharing your favorite part of this final episode. Also tell us which character you enjoyed the most and why.